Are you struggling with roadblocks as a woman in the challenging and constantly changing world of corporate America? If you feel stuck in your career, you may be holding yourself back and may not even realize it. Prepare to be enlightened by the meaningful discussions here at the No Woman Left Behind podcast. Each week, gather the insight you need to break down those walls of limiting beliefs. Unleash your full potential and unlock the leader within. Listen to raw conversations with corporate women as they share inspiring stories with the purpose of obtaining their dream career and living a truly fulfilling life. Here's your host, Rosie Zilinskas.
Hey everyone, welcome to the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. Today's guest is Julianne Waters. She is known as a life transformation artist who sees the hidden potential in people. She has been helping thousands of women for over 4 decades go from unhappy with their lives to feeling confident and alive. She helps them envision their life as they want it to be in their highest state and brings out the courage to live it. Julianne has worked with mayors, news anchors, best-selling authors, TV stars, and even a world-famous author who has appeared on Oprah. She has represented brands such as Estee Lauder, Clinique, Vidal Sassoon. She has been featured in Forbes magazine and had her paintings exhibited in art galleries. As someone who has overcome numerous traumatic events, Julianne is living proof of the possibility of personal reinvention. Her clients marvel at how she gives them permission to be who they are, not some version of who they're told they should be. So Julianne has gone through some tremendous trials and tribulations, and she came out radiant and glowing on the other side. Julianne's smile is just beautiful, and she is an image consultant. So we're going to talk a lot about how your image translates into your career. So with that, stay tuned for Julianne Waters. Julianne Waters, thank you for being here today. And thank you everyone for listening to the No Woman Left Behind podcast show. Julianne Waters is a certified executive coach. And so Julianne, I'm just going to start right off the bat. I know that you give women permission to be who they are and not the version of who they're told that they should be. Tell me, what do you mean by that? Because I just want to know, what do you mean by that?
All right. Well, Rosie, thank you so much for having me in. I'm so excited to be able to share here with your audience the information that could help their business grow and help them grow individually. I help people to feel better, look better, think better, and live better. Women to upgrade into a higher, even higher version of themselves. So when I talk about giving them permission to be who they really are, what I'm really talking about is, we've lived in a lot of lies. We've been told in our life, we're not good enough. We're not pretty enough. We're not smart enough. We'll never do this. We'll never do that. And these are lies. So I want to give permission to women. I do give permission to be who they are in their unique beauty, because there's no one that doesn't have this energy, this aura, this life to them that isn't absolutely fantastic, gorgeous, and beautiful and worth sharing.
Wow.
So that's what I mean about that.
I think that's a great answer, because allowing someone to just be who they are from their inner beauty, that's going to transform their life. So tell me a little bit more about how you actually do something. And then just again, to remind everybody, the No Woman Left Behind podcast show is about empowering women in their career development so that they can advance and move up the corporate ladder. And so how do you do that specifically, Julianne, with the work that you do with some of your clients?
Well, let me tell you, I do NLP coaching, and for over 40 years, I've worked in the fashion industry as a hairstylist, as a makeup artist, and even done some clothing design. So it's pretty easy to apply the principles, of how to look your very best. Like, how do you put your makeup on for your face? How do you wear your hair? What colors really pop on you? All of those things are principles that you apply. It's really hard to see yourself. You can look in the mirror and you see yourself because you've been looking at yourself since childhood. But how do you look at yourself with that eye that says, oh man, that would look really good? It's challenging for all of us. It's challenging for me. How's my hair going to look? What makeup should I be wearing? What colors look the best on me? Those are styling principles to apply. How do you wear your jewelry to enhance and not distract? One thing I do is I wear earrings because on Zoom, it's like this something a little bit memorable. Like, here's something that's kind of moving, and, it's like a little signature. But the most important thing is how you feel about yourself, because it's one thing to to work from the outside in. And that's one of the mistakes that so many of us make, is to work from the outside in, or on the outside, and forget the inside. Mm-hmm. But really, we have these belief systems about who we are, what we can and can't do, and it really limits our potential. So if you ask a human potentialist, they're going to tell you that you're infinite potential. Mm. Scientists and psychologists have pinpointed what it is that really is underneath success or failure. And that is your self-image. Now, that's what's deep inside of you. And sometimes it's very buried. And it's important for us to find out what is that, that self-talk going in our head, because sometimes it's so automatic, we don't even pay attention anymore. It's just in the background. But when you start paying attention, you start hearing yourself, and you know those times. Mm-hmm. When you look in the mirror and you have that negative thought, like, who is that? Or, man, bad hair day, or whatever the self-talk we have, it's there in the background. So my work with women is to work on the deeper mindsets that we have, the limiting beliefs we have. And that's why I say live better, think better, look better, and feel better, because all of that's part of it. It's like our mental health is wrapped up in that limiting belief. Our relationships, our money flow, success in whatever facet of your life, your love life, your friends and associates. There's so much going on, and there's so much competition. Yeah. And we forget that we are unique and brilliant, and we have so much that is our own potential to give to the world. And we just have to be real, be beautiful, be ourselves. But when you feel it on the inside, you can't make it up on the outside. You have to have it from the inside. And that inner glow then brings out the smile. It brings out the light in the eyes. It's magnetic. And that's what is going to attract more success, even more beauty, even more radiance to the work that anybody is doing. It's going to affect their relationships with, as they move up in their the path to their own success, whatever that might be.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's all fantastic. And obviously, you being comfortable with who you are, and like you said, the inner glow. I know that I have good days when I feel good about myself, and not so good days when I don't feel good about myself. So it comes from within, to the outside world. Now, thinking about just the state of the world right now in the pandemic. So many, like my company, for example, they closed the doors. And so now everybody's working from home. And have you noticed if there's any type of side effect about working from home And now people, I've noticed that more often than not, they're not turning on their cameras. And I'm thinking more than anything is because they're not presentable. And so how do you think, Julianne, that impacts someone in the workplace? So they're not visible, they're not really taking care of themselves. Maybe they're working in their pajamas. Is there some kind of psychological side effect to that?
Oh, absolutely. I have those days. It's like I'll get on a Zoom call, and if I don't feel like I look good, I don't want to turn that camera on. If I haven't put my makeup on or comb my hair, or I'm still wearing a pajama t-shirt or something, I don't want to appear on camera. But it's not just the personal appearance. It's also how you feel about the work you do. The question would be, can you feel your very best if you haven't put yourself together, if you aren't showing up in your confidence and power? Now we're talking to women who are really trying to grow their businesses or grow in their company, and to show up, even, let's just say, even if you aren't on camera, because you feel better. Like remember what it feels like when you're, you step into, let's just, an analogy, you step into a pair of high heels.
Yeah.
You immediately feel taller. You feel more sexy. Your energy changes because here you've just done one little thing that has shifted your perspective of yourself. You put on makeup in the mirror, and you're ready to go. You put your lipstick on, and all of a sudden your face pops with energy. And it makes a huge difference in the psychology that you're working, the place you're working from. I think it's not about what you look like on camera. Of course, that's important too. Mm-hmm. But it's also about how you feel about what you're saying, what you're presenting, who you're talking to. It's both a respect for that person and it's a respect for yourself to show up in all your glory and the highest version of yourself, not sometimes, all the time.
Yeah. And I really do wonder if, say, there's a person that is doing some kind of sale in their home. And do you think their decisions might be different if, like, on Wednesday, they're in their pajamas and they're just kind of like feeling blah. And then on Thursday, they're at least in a little bit of makeup, hair, and business casual. Do you think that decision-making is different on those 2 days for that same person in those two different outfits?
Well, I think it's absolutely going to be different because with the pajamas, you're relaxed, you're not as turned on as you are when you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. in all your space. You're a higher version of yourself. You're kind of laid back. Your decisions are going to be laid back. You're going to match how you feel and how your appearance is. It always matches. We see that all the time.
That's so interesting. Now, I also know that you help clients with some life-altering transitions. Tell me a little bit about how you help your clients in those situations, and what are they?
So life gives us opportunities to grow, and some of them are simpler to go through than others. So there are many tools within the realm of NLP that can take you back and help you to change the beliefs that you have inside about a situation. So no matter what the situation is, it's how your perspective is on it, rather than the situation itself. The situation has power, but you have the power to how you're going to weave it into your life and whether you're going to grow through the challenge. So I personally have gone through quite a few traumatic events, and I could share some with the audience if it felt pertinent.
I would love for you to share, but before you share, can you just please explain to the audience, what is NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming. And that is a way of shifting perspective to always be able to control the end results of your experience with your thinking. So it's really a powerful tool to go back into your timeline, to reconstruct things, to make decisions, to balance out, to look at things from the mega into the macro, and to find which way is the best way to decipher, and break down a situation to make it the best learning and example for you. So along with NLP, we also talk about rapport, and how do you make rapport? And that's really powerful too. Like I talk about the inner glow coming out. NLP talks about, what you're giving off with your eyes and your smile and your facial expression, your breath. What is your breath saying about you? It's a really powerful tool to grow, to understand, and to be able to have communication with others.
Wow, that's incredible. I know a little bit about it, but I know Matt Browning, who is our coach, our mutual coach, he teaches NLP. So, and I believe you're an NLP master practitioner. Is that correct?
Yes, and a teacher.
Okay,
I'm
awesome.
an NLP teacher, certified. So.
Okay, so now I would like to hear, obviously you have a story, and based on your story is kind of why you're doing some of the work. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to do this type of work that you're doing today.
Okay, I will. So when I was a young woman, I left a cult that I had been raised in. So I grew up feeling powerless. I felt shame and humiliation, and everything that I did was being controlled by the cult and my dad, who was very abusive. So between my abusive dad and the cult, who told me how to think, behave, dress, feel, everything, I grew up feeling powerless. There were a couple of things that were acceptable for a woman to do, which a woman was to marry and be under the supervision of her husband. But that wasn't me. That's not what I did. One thing that was acceptable is to go in and get a trade. So I went to a trade school. It happened to be hairstyling and cosmetology and facials and aesthetics. So I did that as a kind of a default because that's something I could create independence with. I really loved it, and I was really good at it. So for many years, so for 40 years, I've held a license in cosmetology. I've worked with mayors and news anchors. I've worked with television stars. I've worked with writers who have bestsellers and have been on Oprah. I've really did well in that profession, and I wanted to do more. But when I left the cult, I was 36 years old, and I had 5 children, and I didn't know who I was. I didn't know how to parent outside of that, those boundaries that I grew up in and I had taught my children with. So I had to reinvent myself. And in that process, I did in my personal journey, I became certified in NLP, in transformational breath work, in sound healing, in anything of psyche, touch for health, things that I could grow with. A lot of energy work, Reiki, and whatever I could, so I could grow. And so when I always had my clients, I still have clients that are just my hairstyling clients. I'll go visit them once a year when I go back to California, and I love that personal interaction. But what I really want to do is to work from the inside out, because I know how important that is now. And I've worked with thousands of women. I've made shifts on the outside, really, who you see the change in them, and it's really remarkable. But when they change on the inside, my clients who, I've worked with, who in their transformation, getting a divorce, lose their children going off, they're empty nesters, they lose a child, all of these things have huge impact on them, and it affects every aspect of their life. It's no longer enough for me to just work on the physical appearance, but it's so important to us as women, to show up beautiful, to feel good and look good when we look in the mirror. Like, yeah, I like that person in the mirror. We need to feel that way, but we also need to do the inside work in order to grow. So I'm putting the two together. And looking at what are the hidden belief systems that continue to circulate in your world. So amongst the traumas that I've gone through, going, the violent home and the cult, and I lost a daughter who passed away. My husband passed away with cancer. I've had a lot of trauma to go through, and every time it's a challenge, and sometimes you feel like you're not going to make it, but then you find yourself, and then that light comes back. It was always there, because there's this higher consciousness that's always working for us and through us, but we don't always hold on to it, recognize it, reach for it. And that's the work that I feel blessed to do.
Got it. Wow. Holy cow, Julianne. That's quite a story. I do want to ask you a little bit. Now, you said that you were in a cult and that you felt powerless because either your dad or the cult were dictating what you wore and what you thought and what you did. And you started getting a little independence once you started your aesthetics career. Now, what was that like? And was your husband okay with you leaving the cult? Like, what were some of the decisions, or the thoughts, I should say, that were going through your head as far as why did you feel the need to leave the cult? What was the purpose?
Oh, that's a good question. So that's the longer story. So I had been raised in the cult since I was 2 years old. I didn't know anything different. So when my kids were born, my children, I did the same thing. I taught them the same things that I was taught. And at one point, I recognized how deep sexual abuse was in the cult, both boys and girls. And then it was my daughter. And it wasn't a choice at that time. I knew I had to go out because I needed to protect my children. And that was like the end that said, no, this is not what I want anymore. I can't be here anymore. My husband was so supportive through the whole process. And when my 5 children, ages 4 to 15, myself at 36, walked out of the cult, we didn't look back. We had lots of support from my husband, but I didn't know how to even interact. I had my clients, but when you're in a cult, your clients everybody's at a distance because, it's about mind control.
Right.
They're the outsider, but they're not the insider. So yeah, that was challenging. So it was, my thought process was, this is it. I'm out of here. I cannot do this again with my children. I'm not going to put my children. I want them to grow up powerful and, yeah.
Wow. So I cannot commend you enough for recognizing that that you wanted a better life for your children. And of course, now I can kind of see the connection as to why you're doing the work that you're doing today, because of all of the obstacles and the challenges that you had growing up and being controlled in the cult. And I mean, I believe that you're just this beautiful person. You radiate love, and you're just so welcoming and accepting. And I see all the work that you did. It shows, Julianne. I just want you to know.
Oh, thank you so much.
So it's
Thank
lovely.
you.
Now, kind of bringing the conversation back to women that are trying to advance in their career. What would you say to a woman that is stuck in their career as far as that thought process? Because sometimes, like you said, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know that you're stuck in your career, or that you're maybe not doing things that you could be doing better to be able to have that advancement. Is there anything that you can think of that fits for that question?
Yes, it's very important to begin looking at your life and what's working really well and what isn't working really well, to go back and remember what your dreams are, your dreams were. What did you take and put up on a shelf that you no longer even want to think about anymore because that's not part of your life, but you know that it's something that you wanted or want so bad, but you don't think you can have it. So start looking at, like who you really are. What do you really have? What is your unique gift that you bring? And find out if it fits in your life, in your work, and what you're doing right now. If you feel stuck, then there's likely something that you have put away that you really need to be sharing with the world. And then when you find that, when you start living into your the vibration of life that's meant for you, your unique vibration, then it becomes really clear. Like, this is when I had to get out. When I had to get out, I had to get out. There was no choice. I knew there was something that had to happen. You'll know that something has to happen if you start finding who you really are and what it is that you really want. So you do that with creative visioning. You do that with believing that you're worth it, believing that you can, believing it. So many women don't step up. They don't ask for the raise they want. They don't stand up to the authoritative figure. They don't stand up and say, no, that's not okay. That's not what I want to do. They take it and they step down and they leave themselves behind, their truth behind. So that getting a real good picture of who you are and what you want changes that. And it's amazing what happens, how other people respect that. And, so many stories of women who have gotten the job they wanted. They got the raise they wanted because they shifted inside here.
Yeah. That makes a big difference. And so when you have a life-changing transition like that, like the one that you had, not only does it impact your personal life, but it impacts your work. And the same thing, if you're miserable in your work, it's going to bleed over into your personal life. And so I think Absolutely. One of the things that women, when you're stuck in your job and you're not engaged, and then you keep doing the same thing over and over and over without doing, kind of like the soul searching that you're saying, then that's when you start just feeling blah about your job. And then again, it bleeds over into your personal life. But if you start trying to go back and figure out, like you said, what were you good at? What are your not dreams, but your creative juices? Like, what did you enjoy when you were a kid? And if you start kind of going back and thinking about it, and the most ideal thing is if you are miserable in your job and you start doing that soul searching, try to find a job that matches those creative skills so that you're fulfilled in your work. And then again, hopefully that's going to bleed positively into your life. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And one more thing to add to that, sometimes it's extracurricular. Sometimes it's like we're working so hard at scaling up that we don't take the time to take care of ourselves and do the things that we love to do. Whatever that might be, reading, riding your bike, hiking in the mountains, personal time, and we're not taking care of ourselves. But maybe sometimes that shift can be on the outside. What is it? When was the last time you took a vacation? When have you the last time you gone on a date with your husband and just let go of all work and just laughed and had a good time and enjoyed every minute of your life? This life is here to enjoy, to love, to shine forth your personal brilliance and skills. And if you're not doing that, you're not really, you're not fully living out. You're not living into your potential. You tap into that and everything falls into place, including your work.
Yes, no, I totally agree with that. And so you also talk about just having the best version of yourself to move into, whether it's entrepreneurship or the corporate ladder. But do you have like a simple kind of hack for, let's just talk about image, like outside image. Maybe I don't feel like doing a full hair and makeup, but what are some of your tips or tricks as far as what can I do like for basics where I could feel good, but maybe I don't have to go the whole thing of like hair and makeup?
Oh, absolutely. So this is what I find makes a huge difference. Lipstick makes a huge difference. And so does having some type of a business style jacket or top on. So if you have a top, or if you have a jacket just sitting somewhere nearby you on a chair and you have a quick business meeting, put the jacket on real quickly, show up on the camera with a little lipstick, brush your hair, and then, and then jewelry stands out. Something that stands out that makes you feel a little like you're not just sunk down in your pajamas and your slippers, right. But you're like up. It's lipstick. It translates on camera. Be bigger in camera than you are, because everything comes down 50%. Color is minimized. Your voice is minimized. Your smile is minimized. So be big on camera. Feel big. And take care of those few little things like the lipstick, the jacket that's maybe handy to put on if you're not feeling good, and what that might take 3 minutes to put it all together. Brushing your hair, doing that. If you want to put on a little mascara, you don't have to put on the full, makeup. And you can still feel good and look good on camera.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And so, Julianne, if someone were wanting to talk to you about whether it's NLP or maybe image consulting, how can they get a hold of you?
I have a calendar, and you can set up an appointment. I'll give you on this podcast. If you do reach out to me, I'll give you a consultation. I think my scheduled time is 45 minutes. So I'll give you 45 minutes and we can look at where you are and what you might want. If it's consulting on your hair and your makeup and the way you feel about yourself. I also work with mental health, depression, depression is a big thing right now. Yes. So it might not be that you feel like you want to just put on your makeup and look good on the camera. It might, and you just want to wear your pajamas because you don't feel good inside. Right. You're depressed. And so I work with that to re-enliven you to feel good. So how to think better, feel better, look better, and live better. Oh. So all of the psychology of what makes that happen, I can look at what you are so unique. You are unique. There isn't a mold that's going to be just for you. I mean, there is going to be a mold just for you, but there's not going to be a mold that fits everybody. What you need is going to be different than what somebody else needs. And what I think what's been really helpful for me is actual personal transformational pieces where you're like, you one-on-one, where you're in a retreat or you're doing something. And I want to work with my clients to create just what they need. If it's consultation on Zoom, we can do that. If it's actually getting together and shopping together, we can do that. Going through your closet together, we can do that. If it's changing your hairstyle, learning how to put on makeup so you're going to look and feel your best, that's a possibility. So I want to work individually with a client on what they need at the place they are in their life.
It's fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so I will have Julianne's Calendly link in my blog post. So go to the NoWomanLeftBehind.com blog post. And so, Julianne, just to recap, give me two concrete tips that women can use in their careers.
Okay, I'm going to say this is something we forget to do, but hydrate before you caffeinate. Because if you're hydrated, you're going to feel better. You're going to look better. Your skin is going to be glowing, and it helps to clean the toxins. It helps to keep you awake and alive feeling. So that's one tip. And I also, I shared, keep your jacket next to your, really close to you so that you can put it on. But also, when you're in the right frame of mind, before you start talking to your Zoom audience, so get yourself energized. And there's several ways to do that. I learned this great method. I think you learned it with me, the Cooper method.
Yes.
And before you turn on your Zoom video, to get yourself really energized, you can jump up and down a little bit, or do a little bit of like moving or exercising or dancing or whatever works for you. And then begin to just pat yourself on your arms, pat yourself on your chest, go down on your legs, all the way down to your feet, pat, 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 pat. And you'll be surprised if you try this out. It just makes your whole body start tingling.
Yes.
And your energy comes up. You're no longer just in your head thinking about it. You're kind of using your whole body as an instrument for your power, your influence, your confidence, and the impacts you're going to have today when you go on Zoom.
Wow, Julianne. That was a perfect tip. The Cooper method. Perfect. So, well, I know we are already out of time, and there was so much good information and good advice. And for anybody that is kind of struggling with their image, I highly encourage you to talk to Julianne, because we spent 3 days together in Colorado Springs last week, and Julianne was just lovely. She was able to put herself together just beautifully, professionally. And if you're struggling to do any kind of if you're struggling with your career, and it might be just the way you present yourself, or maybe it's not the outside, but it's the inside, and you're a little bit depressed. So, talk to Julianne. I highly encourage you to have a complimentary session with Julianne. So again, Julianne, thank you so much for being here. This was a wonderful conversation. So any last words?
Thank you. It was my pleasure to be here. I just want to tell your audience, tap into your divine, and then you let it shine.
Oh, I love it. All right, Julianne, thank you so much for being here. And everybody else, make sure that you go to the NoWomanLeftBehind.com for the blog. Wow, that conversation with Julianne got a little intense there when she talked about having to leave a cult with 5 kids, and she left because she saw the damage that the cult was having on her kids. So that's pretty powerful. When you know that it's time for you to take action, then you really know. So Julianne is an image consultant, and we talked a lot about how your image impacts your behavior at work. So I hope that the next time you feel like staying in your pajamas all day long, just at least change into street clothes so that you feel a little bit more responsive. And last thing we're going to do today is I'm going to recap the 3 tips that Julianne gave us today. So tip number 1, she said, hydrate before you caffeinate. This will clear out the toxins, and it will make you feel more awake and alive. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, Julianne said, make sure whenever you're working, keep a jacket like a blazer close by, because if you're just wearing a t-shirt and you throw on your jacket, it's a whole new look and it looks professional. So that's tip number 2. And then finally, tip number 3, Julianne and I both went to a conference in Colorado Springs a couple weeks ago, and the Cooper method, which is tip number 3, use the Cooper method to get yourself energized. So the Cooper method is you literally pat yourself on your arms and your legs and everywhere, and then you jump up and down, and you do that to energize yourself, and you bring the focus into your body instead of your mind. You can do this before a big presentation, before a big meeting with a client, before your performance review. You can go into the bathroom and then use the Cooper method. And I'll give you a little bit of backstory on the Cooper method. We adopted the Cooper method from an airline pilot, Joyce Cooper, who crashed, and she was literally like her arm was hanging by just a few nerves, and she lost feeling in her legs, and the doctors told her that she would never walk again. And Joyce Cooper essentially was hitting her skin and her legs to get the feeling back in her limbs. And through this method, which again, she's just tapping on herself and jumping up and down to get that energy, she not only was able to walk, but dance. And that's the resiliency that happens when you are willing to do something. So Matt Browning, who is a tremendous speaker and a mentor to me and to Julianne, taught us the Cooper method again a couple weeks ago. So again, tip number 3 is use the Cooper method to pump yourself up and energize yourself before some kind of big event. Okay, so with that, I really thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this episode with Julianne Waters. And remember, be brave, be bold, and take action.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Let these stories of self-encouragement and professional development serve as a guide in navigating through corporate America in the most practical and fulfilling way possible. Do not forget to subscribe to the show at nowomanleftbehind.com for more content like this. Leave a rating and share it with your friends, because we want to make sure that no woman is left behind. Until I see you next time, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.